Okay.
Good afternoon. Once again, I'm going to apologize for not making any of these for a long time, but we tried a different internet company and they never could get it to work, and we went back to the old internet company. We've had it for about a month, but I haven't got back in the habit of this. I'm going to try to get back in the habit. You know, if you mess up your habits of going to church, your habits of going to Sunday school, they're hard to get back into. So try really hard not to get out of good habits and just to get out of the bad ones. All right, we are going to chapter 6 in Genesis. This is a rather controversial chapter. Part of the reason for the controversy really has to do, I believe, that sometimes in our modern world, quote unquote, we just think of the natural and don't think of the spiritual. For some reason, even sometimes we as Christians just feel this is a natural world and there's not a spiritual word to it. However, we can see that our civilization or whatever tends to be going kind of to the supernatural sometimes, and that can be really bad because there's really only two spirits. We're either going to follow Satan or we're going to follow God. And unfortunately, a lot of the spiritualism that's going on today has more to do with Satan than it has to do with God. But anyway, there is a spiritual side of this world, and Satan is part of it, and also his fallen angels. So we're going to go, I will try to give you kind of both sides of this and kind of tell you where I fit in and why I fit in. But we'll go to chapter 6 in Genesis, and it says, "Now it came about when man began to multiply on the face of the land, and daughters were born to him, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves, whomever they chose." Now, this becomes a very controversial verse because they say, who are the sons of God? Well, there's two different theories. And one of them says, and if you have a Scofield Bible and you look at this verse and you look for your study helps, this is what it's going to tell you. It's going to say that those were the sons of Seth, and somehow or another the daughters of Cain married the daughters of Seth, and that became all that problems, which would just... but as I've looked into this over and over through my life, the first time I ever came across this verse, I talked to my pastor, and he had the old Scofield Bible. I was a young woman, probably about 19, maybe 20, and that was what he told me. And I thought, okay, I agreed with that. He was the pastor and whatever, but never really seemed right. And as I've told you, I think before, if I haven't told you before, I will be telling you again and again, because what we can understand about the Bible is it interprets itself, so just keep reading. So, of course, if we go to the New Testament, when Jesus talks about the sons of God, he's talking about us. We're adopted into him. But in the Old Testament, it's a little bit different. And so I'm going to go to a couple places. Well, first I'm going to go to Job, because that's the other place that we hear, we see the sons of God. I'm going to go to chapter 1, verse 6 in Job. "Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them. The Lord said to Satan, 'From where do you come?' Then Satan answered the Lord and said, 'From roaming about on the earth and walking around on it.' And the Lord said to Satan, 'Have you considered my servant Job?'" And that's where I'm going to go on to Job, I hope I'm right here, 38:47. Sometimes I don't put in enough time looking at this stuff, and if not, we'll just go on. What did I say? Job 38. 38:47. We'll soon find out whether this is what I want or not. Well, I guess it's not. I don't even have 47. Maybe it's 41. Anyway, what you see in this verse, and there's some other verses in the Old Testament that I'm not going to go to, you can understand that this was Satan and his angels. So what is he calling the sons of God? He's calling his angels the sons of God. And these particular angels are not good angels. These are bad angels. How do we know that these are bad angels? Because we can read on and tell what they're doing. And it says they've come in, they saw the daughters of men that were beautiful, and they took them for wives. And one thing we also find out about angels is they're always considered a male figure. Now, where the controversy comes in is we don't think of angels as being sexual in any way. And of course, Jesus says there are no marriages in heaven. So there will not be any sex in heaven. I'm positive of that. However, what happened here happens on earth. And I will go ahead further and tell you that why I do believe that these are evil spirits that come into the daughters of men, that this would be crossed between an evil spirit and women. And I think that seems so foreign to us, unless it's something in some kind of weird magazine or what was that dumb movie that was in the 60s, Mary Jane's Baby or whatever it was. I can't remember, but it was an awful movie. I never saw it, but I knew something about it. Then the Lord said, my spirit shall not strive to man forever, because he also is flesh. Nevertheless, his days shall be 120 years. So God says, and remember, this comes right after this. This is part of why God brings judgment on the earth. Because of the sons of men and the daughters of man and the sons of God. That's not what God likes. And he said, you know what? My spirit's not going to be here. I'm leaving this earth. But you know what? I always give a chance. God always gives a chance. So how long does he give us a chance? He gives us 120 years. He says, I'm given 120 years. I'm going to send you a preacher. We're going to find out. Noah's the preacher, he says. Noah preaches for 120 years. How many converts does he get? 3 sons and 3 daughter-in-laws, period. That's it. And so let's take it on a little bit further, and we'll understand a little bit more about verse 2. The Nephilims were on the earth in those days, and also afterwards, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. Those were the mighty men who were old men of renown. And some of the things would say valor. Now, what are we talking about here? The Nephilim means giants. Now, you can look that up in any of your Bible dictionaries or whatever. But so what happens is when this, whoever they were, sons of God came into the daughters of men, the children that they bore were giants. And it's interesting because we think, okay, well, the flood would have gotten rid of all those giants, right? But no, that's not what our Bible says. It says the Nephilims were on the earth in those days and also afterwards. Afterwards what? After the flood. So keep that in mind as we go along. We won't keep talking, we won't discuss that too much there. Those were the mighty men who were of old and men of valor. Now sometimes we see mighty or valor or renown and we think, oh, that means good. No, that just means people knew about him. Renown means people knew about him. You know, we have some movie stars now that I could say were renowned. We have some soldiers that we could say were men of valor. They had courage. But were they necessarily good? Were they men of God? No, not necessarily. So that's, don't get that when you're reading those kind of verses. Don't just take, oh, well, it's in the Bible, so they're talking about godly men. No, they're not. They're just talking about men that were well known, or also that they were brave. It doesn't necessarily mean that they were men of God. Then the Lord saw the wickedness of men was great. We're not going to get very far today on our time limit. Then the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great on the earth, and that every intent of the thought of his heart was only evil continuously. And the Lord was sorry that he made man on the earth, and he was grieved in the heart. Now, it's going to go on then about Noah, but we're going to finish up just a little bit here. I'd like to finish this today. Well, let's go ahead up and look at Jude 6. There's only one chapter in Jude, so it'll be verse 6, 7 and 8. And it says, and the angels who did not keep their own dominion. Now remember, Jude is in the New Testament, the book right before the Revelations, and I'm going to start again. And the angels who did not keep their own dominion. What was that? Their own dominion was heaven, so they were here on earth. They weren't where they were supposed to be, but was it? And as we learn later, if we study Satan, they were actually kicked out of heaven. However, as we just read in Job, Satan himself still can come up right in front of God. I'll have to read this 25 times before I'm done here. And angels who did not keep their own abode, but abandoned their proper abode, he has kept in eternal bonds under darkness for the judgment of that great day. These particular angels, we know not all of Satan's angels, but these angels that co-inhabited with women, God said, okay, this is it. You're going to be bound up. And how do we know that's sin? Because we're going to go down, we're still talking about the angels, just as Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities around them, since they, in the same way as their indulgence to gross immorality and went after strange flesh. What is he talking about? He's comparing these angels to Sodom and Gomorrah, who were a homosexual. As he said, man goes after man, that's strange flesh. Angels go after man, that's strange flesh. And gross immoralities, awful things, and this was an awful thing that happened, and went after strange flesh and exhibited as an example in the underdoing the punishment of eternal fire. Now that's just what God says is going to be their punishment. We have another little verse over here in 1 Peter and in 2 Peter, and then we're going to quit with this. 1 Peter 3:19 and 20 says, in which also he went and made proclamations to the spirits now in prison. We're talking about Jesus going down to those particular spirits who once were disobeyed. Now, how do we know that these were the same spirits? Reread the next verse. I'm going to read it all together so you get it all together. In which also he went and made proclamations to the spirits now in prison who once were disobedient when the patience of God kept waiting in the days of Noah during the construction of the ark, in which a few, that is 8 persons, were brought safely through the water. Now this is a verse that gives an awful lot of people and a lot of preachers a lot of problems, but when you put it together with the story that's in Genesis and what we see in Jude, it's fairly easy to understand that these angels, God, during the days of Noah, right before Noah, when God brought judgment, then he also put these spirits in a prison. They're not roaming the world anymore. We also have one more little bite, and then we're going to finish because I think we're over time, and it's 2 Peter 2:46. Right over to well, no, we're not. I'll bet it's 2, 4, and 6 because there's not 46. Okay. Let's do it. Now, if God did not spare angels when they sinned, but cast them into hell and committed them to pits of darkness revealed for judgment, and did not spare the ancient world, but perceived Noah, a preacher of righteousness, with 7 others, when he brought a flood upon the world in ungodliness. So you see, all of these verses kind of work together, and you see a picture. You see a picture of
There's a big spider.
Okay, well, I'm not interested in that right now. I'm sorry. My husband is pointing out a spider on the floor to me. So, and it's going to make me lose where I'm at, my thought. So what we see, those verses do all to go together. And in my studies, as far as just even the Bible, as they go together, I also put in doubt, I think, what do the Jewish people believe? Well, the Jewish people believe that these sons of God were fallen angels, and it's written in other places in their writings that that's what they do believe. So I have decided that that's also what I believe. A little different, but it does go with these other verses, and as I said, the Bible interprets itself, and next week we'll start on how Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord, and I will try to keep these coming. Bye.